Good morning, dear Sangha. Today is Saturday, June the 6th, in the year 2009, and we are in the Assembly of Stars Meditation Hall, Lower Hamlet, in our 21-day retreat. In the past, we have been describing dukkha, ill-being, in a way that is not relevant anymore, especially to the young people. We spoke of dukkha, ill-being, in terms of birth and death and old age and sickness and so on. But birth and death are part of life. And because we accept life, we have to accept birth and death. So birth and death are not exactly ill-being. Of course, childbirth involves danger, a lot of risk, painful. But the birth of a baby is something wonderful for the mother, for the father, and for us. And that is why we celebrate our birthday. Happy birthday to you. So birth is not exactly ill-being. It's not suffering. It can be a joy. That's our way of looking. Old age. I have found that old age is something very delicious, very wonderful. You are calmer, you go more slowly, and you enjoy much more than when you are too young. You don't rush, you take your time, and you taste every moment of your daily life. So old age is not so bad. Old age is not ill-being. Old age can be enjoyable. Sickness. Sickness is a part of life, like birth and old age. If you accept life, you have to accept sickness. When we were small, we were sick again and again. And because of that, our immune system became stronger. If we did not get sick as a baby, we will remain very weak. To get sick is to learn how to be strong. And because the baby gets sick and gets sick again and again, her immune system becomes strong. And that's why sickness is good. And we have to accept it because it has the goodness, its own goodness. So that is the way we look. And sickness is not exactly ill-being, suffering. We may get sick, but you don't have to suffer. Sickness is something not avoidable, but suffering is optional. You can get a cold, but you don't have to suffer. Okay, I had a cold. Getting a cold is something regular, something you must do from time to time. So you don't have to suffer, even if you have a cold. So there are things that are unavoidable. But to suffer or to suffer, that's up to you. So pain is something maybe you cannot avoid, but suffering is optional. You choose to suffer or not to suffer. So birth, old age, sickness are natural, and it is possible that you don't have to suffer because of them, because you have chosen to accept them as part of life. It depends on you. Remember, please, pain is unavoidable, but suffering is optional. You may choose not to suffer even if the pain is there, sickness is there, and life and the situation will be quite different. It depends on your way of looking. Death. That is also part of life. It's not the enemy. Cái viết của thầy nó hơi dở. We know that many cells of our body die at every moment, and because of that, new cells can be born. So death takes place all the time. Without death, birth cannot be possible. So in order to accept life, you have to accept death. Imagine there is no death. There will be only people very old walking like this all over the planet. And no baby is born, can be born. So there are those of us who accept death without fear. Death is something natural. And if we look deeply, we see that we are not dying. We will continue in other forms. So switching from one form to another, so it may be something joyful. Like if you are a cloud, and if you have to end your form of being a cloud to become rain, and if you see that to be rain falling down on earth is also something wonderful, so you accept the death of the cloud in order to embrace the birth of the rain, and you don't have to suffer. So death is also acceptable, and you don't have to suffer because of death. Depends on your wisdom, your way of looking. And then in the past we continue with separation. With those we love is suffering, is dukkha. Those to whom we are attached, we don't want to be separated from him, from her. But if we have to be away, and then we suffer. But if we have deep wisdom, if we have strong aspiration and then we can accept that separation in order to fulfill our vow. So we don't have to suffer. And reunion, not reunion, but to be forced to live with the one that you don't love, you hate, is suffering. And that is the old description of dukkha, of ill-being. But if you are a good practitioner, you see that this is a challenge. For you, there is an opportunity for you to practice. So you accept him, accept her, and then your practice grows. Your love and understanding and forgiveness grow. That's good. So that is why that kind of reunion with those, staying with those you don't like, is no longer something describe it as ill-being, suffering. Cầu bắt đắc khổ, not getting what you want. What you want. Not getting what you want is suffering, is ill-being. That's how he described it, dukkha in the past. Of course, if you don't get what you want, you suffer. But the truth is that sometimes you got it and you suffer more. And after you got it, you don't treasure it anymore. You want something else. So that is the old way of describing dukkha. But now we have our own, our new way. So as a Dhamma teacher, we have to realize that the dukkha of our time should be presented, should be described differently. And we have begin with tension in the body. Tension in body, stress. That is the kind of ill-being that is very close. You have to recognize in order to deal with tension, stress, and pain in the body. The Dhamma teacher just told me yesterday that people of our days are so stressful. That is why the things they appreciate the most is the practice of total deep relaxation when they come to a retreat. They lie down and they have chance to relax. And in that position, they get more easily the teaching. So you give them guided meditation for them to relax and to get in touch with their body, their feelings, and release the tension. And that Dhamma teacher said that everyone responded to that kind of practice. Total relaxation, guided meditation in the lying position, because people are so stressful. Everyone needs to rest, to release the tension. So in a retreat that you organize, total deep relaxation will be an important part of it. A guided meditation done in that position can be very successful. There is a violence within us, anger, violence in us. And anger manifesting as the terrorism. And this despair. The act of terrorism can be described as an act of despair. And the act of suicide is an act of despair. In France, every day, about the young people in France, about 33 to 35 young French person commit suicide every day. There are more of them in the United Kingdom and in many other countries. The young people take their life every day because they have so much anger, so much despair in them. They do not know how to handle. So that is a real dukkha in our society. They have a lot of tension, stress, pain, anger, despair, and that is why they commit suicide. And we have to help them. As a Dharma teacher, we need to know ways in order to help the young people in every country. People don't commit suicide when they are poor, but when they have a lot of despair and anger. And people don't kill because they are poor. People kill because they are victims of anger and despair and violence. So to help the terrorists, and to help the terrorists to be, you have to help remove the anger, the despair, the violence in them. To kill them does not mean helping. Broken family. That is everywhere. Divorce. Broken families. And you have to be equipped with the kind of practice and teaching that can help with this situation. How to help a couple stay with each other longer. How to help the children to continue to have a family and not to suffer of the divorce and of broken families. Terrorism, the destruction of human life, the destruction of the ecosystem, or global warming, etc. I think economic crisis, recession, poverty, social injustice, they are all derived from this kind of suffering. So if we can call the suffering, the real suffering, by the true name, it would be very helpful. Because we know exactly, we will know exactly what kind of medicine, what kind of healing we need in order to deal with it. Because the truth about dukkha will bring about the truth about the cessation of dukkha. We know that the teaching of the Buddha in the first sharing, in the first Dhamma talk, is about the Four Noble Truths. And the Four Truths are described as noble. Arya, noble. Arya is the Sanskrit noble. It is noble because it leads to the cessation of ill being. And the fourth truth is about the path leading to the cessation of ill being. It is called also the Arya path, Arya Magga. And chánh in Chinese it means the right. Right. So noble also means right. And we know that the noble path consists of right thinking, right view, right speech, right action, right livelihood. So the word right is there. The word right in Sanskrit is samyak. Sama in Pali. And morality is about right and wrong. Morality is a code of conduct that has authority on the matters of right and wrong. That is how we define morality, a code of conduct that has authority on matters of right and wrong. And morality can be an ideal code of conduct that we would like to accept and to follow. We want to know the right path to go, to avoid suffering. And morality means also ethics. That is a code of conduct that show the path and the virtue. And ethics is that discipline of philosophy that studies the matters of right and wrong conduct. So when the Buddha offered the Noble Eightfold Path, he intended to offer a path for all of us, a path that leads to the cessation of ill-being, of suffering. But the question people ask is, how do you define right? What do you mean by right? What do you mean by wrong? When we say right thinking, what do you mean by right thinking? Everyone wants right thinking, but what is right thinking? How to think in order for your thinking to be right? Right speech, what to say, what kind of speech that make your words right speech. So that is the question, and that is the subject of a discipline called the normative ethics. Normative ethics, normative morality. There should be norms by which you judge that something is right or wrong. Norm is the kind of criteria, tiêu chuẩn. This is a kind of norm by which you can judge whether this is right or wrong. So when the Buddha say right view, you ask him, why do you know, dear Buddha, that view is right? So that is a basic question. And it is why we have to speak, to talk about the norms, the criteria. And the first criteria that we mention is suffering and happiness. Whatever brings suffering, that's wrong. Whatever can bring happiness, that is right. That is one of the criteria. Dukkha and sukha. But we just learn something about suffering. There is something different between suffering and pain. And we have said that pain, if we know how to accept it, we don't have to suffer. Pain is unavoidable, but suffering is optional. Separation can be painful. But if you are animated by a strong ideal, a strong vocation, a strong aspiration, you accept separation in order to realize that. You accept to leave your family, to leave the comfort of your daily life in order to engage in a harder kind of life, because you want to realize something important. And that is why separation is no longer a pain. There is separation, but there is no suffering. When Siddhartha left his home, he had to leave behind his wife, his child, his family, and everything, and accept the difficult, the hard life of an ascetic. But he had a lot of joy because he was able to follow his ideal. So whether you suffer or you don't suffer, it's up to you. It's up to your view, your understanding. So that is why suffering is not a simple thing. Sometimes pain is only pain, and when you are able to accept pain, you don't suffer. So there must be some difference between pain, the lack of comfort, and suffering. And happiness also. Is there any difference between happiness and pleasure? Because many of us think of pleasure as happiness. If you inject a dose of drugs, heroin into your body, you feel very happy. But there are those of us who don't see it as happiness. There are those of us who feel very happy drinking a lot of cognac, alcohol. There is a feeling of pleasure. But is it truly happiness? So pleasure may be different from happiness. And there are kind of pleasures that do not look like happiness. And that is why we have to look more deeply. Pain is not exactly suffering. Pain cannot be identified with suffering. And pleasure is something different from happiness. Pleasure is not exactly happiness. Like hiking. And you go for the whole day and you climb, and you sweat all over, and you get some sketches and things like that. And you seem to suffer during hiking. And there are those who say that, well, that person is not wise. It's much better to stay home and watch television. Watching television is much better than hiking. So sit there, and you who are climbing and who like it very much when you are on a mountain, you look at, you think of those who are there in their living room and just watching television one program after another. You have pity for them. So who of you are happy, is happy? The hiker or the television watcher? So it depends. And when you go to school, and there are those who go to school and consider to be something not pleasant. You have to go to school every day and to learn things every day, and you suffer. But there are certain young people who love to study, who find happiness in their studies. To go to school is dukkha or sukha. It depends on you. So it's very hard to use this kind of criterion in order to define whether to go to school or right, or not to go to school is right. So this criterion is not enough to define what is right and what is wrong. The Four Noble Truths, the first Dhamma talk given by the Buddha, seems to say that everything that leads to suffering is wrong, and everything that leads to the cessation of suffering is right. But we have, for that we have to look deeply into the nature of happiness and suffering in order to understand. And that is why we have another set of criteria. It's called beneficial and unbeneficial, harmful. Lợi hại, khổ lạc, lợi hại. What is beneficial to you, to your health, to your understanding, to your learning, that is good. And what is not beneficial, that is bad, that is bad, that is wrong. So when you go to school and learn, that is beneficial. So you have something in order to support going to school, learning. When you drink alcohol, you get pleasure. But you know that drinking too much of alcohol, your liver will get harm. So this is a set of criteria that can help you to see more clearly. So anything you do that benefit the well-being of your body, that is good, including the mindful movement. So if you see that while doing the mindful movement, you enjoy. You feel it. It is dukkha. Is sukha, happiness. There are mental formations that are described as beneficial, like joy, like compassion, like forgiveness, like understanding, like love. And every time you touch the seed of compassion or joy or brotherhood in you, they manifest and they make you happy. They help develop your joy and your happiness. So these are mental formations called beneficial. And you know that in the other person there are also these kind of beneficial mental formations. So there are ways that you can help, can touch these beneficial things in him or in her, so that they will manifest, so that that person will be happy. And if that person is happy, you profit. So what is beneficial and what is not beneficial? What is beneficial belongs to the right, and what is not beneficial belongs to the wrong. There is another set of criteria called mê ngộ. You are deluded or you are awake. Awakening, you are awake or you are deluded. When you are not clear-minded, you are not awake, you make the wrong decision, you do the wrong thing. you have the wrong judgment when you are not awake. When you don't have a clear mind. Suppose you drink too much alcohol, or suppose you are under the effect of drugs, you are not clear-sighted. You can be deluded. And whatever decision you make during that moment cannot be wrong, cannot be right. Suppose you are angry at your son, very angry at him. And if in that moment your anger makes you not lucid, you are not awake. And if in that moment you write the testament, and then you don't want your son to benefit anything from your heritage, and if you make that decision during a time like that, your decision is not right. So don't do anything when you are not awake, when you don't have, you are not clear-minded. Wait until you are yourself, you are quite awake in order to make the decision. So deluded and awakened is also a set of criteria that will help determine what is right and wrong. If you decide to sell your house, you gamble and you lose, and in that moment you want to recover. So in that kind of mentality, you decided to sell your house in order to get the money and to continue the gambling. And in that moment, you are not awake. You are being carried away by your feeling. And if you sign that house, sign that contract to sell your house in order to put into the gambling, and then your wife and your children will have to move out and live outside. So during that moment, to make a decision is very dangerous. And the decision made during that time must be a wrong decision. So that is why this is a very important criterion also. In the Buddhist tradition, we offer also the Khai and Ya. To open and to bar, to obstruct, to bar, B-A-R, one R, one R. The action is to open or to bar, to obstruct the way. To open means to make an exception. Suppose you don't want to lie. You say you believe that to lie is a wrong thing to do. to tell the truth is always a good thing to do, and to tell a lie is always a wrong thing to do. But suppose someone who is looking for someone else to kill, and he came to ask you whether you have seen that person, where is hiding, and if you tell the truth, well, the other person will be killed. So if you tell the truth, you kill people, and that is why you are forced to tell a lie. No, I have not seen him. You are motivated by compassion, and you allow yourself. This is an exception. And morality without that kind of dexterity, that kind of flexibility would not be intelligent. That is why to open, to make exception, to allow is a very important thing to do.